Being in the midst of my 5th and final year of rabbinical school has caused me to reflect on all I have learned during my time at HUC. The people I've met, the classes I've taken, and the experiences that I've had. One of the most formative years for me was my year in Israel. I not only fell in love with the country, but was able to experience liberal, progressive Judaism for the first time. I remember being amazed at just how much there was out there, how many holidays I had never celebrated, and how many rituals and nuances I knew nothing about. For instance, I remember the first time I ever heard of Hoshana Rabbah. Some of my classmates were talking about this holiday and which synagogue to attend at 5:45 in the morning. And my first thought wasn't, "Oi, service is at 5:45 in the morning," but rather, what in the world is Hoshana Rabbah? The Reform movement and its reformers have wrestled with ritual since the beginning of the late 18th century. This year, for my thesis, I've had the opportunity to trace one ritual in particular through the history of the Reform movement, and this ritual is mikveh. For thousands of years, Jewish men and women used the mikveh to address issues of ritual purity. A few reasons people would immerse are having abnormal discharges, contracting certain skin conditions, coming into contact with a corpse, and the three we hear about most today, as part of conversion, finishing menstruation, and post-childbirth. From the time of Masada, where the earliest mikveh has been found, to secret mikvaot discovered underneath houses during times of Jews in distress, during times the Jews were in distress. The mikveh has always played a crucial role in Jewish life. It's so important, in fact, that the rabbis tell us if we are settling a new community, we are required to create a mikveh before building a synagogue. The mikveh's importance doesn't just stem from Jewish law, though. Women who regularly use the mikveh tell of its communal aspect, how at the end of menstruation, when they go to the mikveh, friends are there, and it's a time to talk and catch up without men around. Other women discuss the repetitiveness of the ritual, how it adds meaning to something that might otherwise be seen as inconvenient or mundane. Women also speak of how special it is to be reunited with their husbands or partners following the week or two of separation. They refer to it as a monthly honeymoon, a night made significant by the previous longing for each other. However you choose to view mikvah, it has held and continues to hold potential and meaning to thousands of Jewish women. Now, I'm not trying to argue that every aspect of mikvah is wonderful and meaningful. For some people, there exist real drawbacks and hesitations when it comes to immersion in mikvah, whether it is being used on a regular basis or not. What I am saying is ritual makes Judaism relevant to our everyday lives. Whereas in the past, Reform Judaism initially cast off ritual, as seen beginning with the Pittsburgh Platform of 1885, in the 1960s and 70s, the movement began to shift towards reclaiming traditions that were previously viewed as foreign to our present spiritual state. The San Francisco Platform of 1976 states, "Within each area of Jewish observance, Reformed Jews are called upon to confront the claims of Jewish tradition, however differently perceived, and to exercise their individual autonomy, choosing and creating on the basis of commitment and knowledge. As Reformed Jews, we are pushed to discover those rituals which are spiritually significant to us and work to incorporate them into our Jewish lives and identities." Let me give you a personal example. One custom I find particularly spiritually meaningful is saying a bracha before I eat my food. And when you're married to someone who can't eat gluten, i.e. bread, you actually have to figure out which blessing to say, since you can't just say the motzi and be done with it. Each time I sit down to a meal, I have to look at what's on my plate, think about all the blessings I know for food, and then decide which bracha best fits my meal. Most of the time, I can get away with the shehakol, since this covers fish and dairy, mainly what we eat. But there are definitely meals when I actually have to figure out which blessing applies, such as when we have the ever so rare breakfast together and only eat potatoes, or when we have fried green tomatoes for dinner. It's a ritual I really enjoy, especially when it causes a debate between Daniel and me. Blessing my food reminds me of its origin and turns a mundane task into a meaningful Jewish experience. As Reformed Jews, we have the gift of being able to approach ritual from our own perspective and engage in those rituals which we find meaningful. This allows space for customs to be reinvented to meet modern needs. The following is a story Anita Diamond, a famed Jewish author, told me personally at this year's Mayim Chaim Mikveh retreat in Boston. In 2001, Anita Diamond, along with other women, presented the idea of a pluralistic mikveh at the CCAR Biennial in Boston. Their plan was to create a mikveh which could be utilized by all streams of Judaism, and a place that allowed for the reinterpretation of ritual surrounding the mikveh. Diamond told me she was unsure how the participants at the conference would respond to this idea, and that her heart sank when Rabbi Gunther Plaut, a prominent Reform rabbi and author, stood to make a comment in the middle of their presentation, something he rarely, if ever, did, as he was always very diplomatic and reserved. He made his way to the microphone and said, "This is something we need to do." In 2004, Mayim Chaim, Anita Diamond's visionary mikveh, meaning Waters of Life, opened its doors just outside of Temple Re'im in Boston. This mikveh is not only a source for the Boston community, but for all liberal Jewish communities searching for a way to recreate this piece of ancient tradition. Since Mayim Chaim's inception, it has provided around 1,400 immersions every year for men and women, helping them mark milestones such as weddings, b'nai mitzvah, conversions, surviving trauma or illness, coming out ceremonies, and important birthdays. Liberal Jews who would otherwise never have encountered a mikveh are finding new meaning in this ritual. This mikveh is truly a gift to modern Judaism and serves as a major asset in helping the Reform movement reclaim ancient Jewish customs. Rabbi Abraham Isaac Kook, a renowned Torah scholar, said it best: "The old becomes new, and the new becomes holy." After doing some research on Hoshana Rabbah and attending services at a local congregation in Jerusalem, I found this holiday to be extremely meaningful and ritual-filled, and wanted others to have the same opportunity to reclaim Hoshana Rabbah for themselves. This past year, I decided to bring the celebration of the 7th day of Sukkot to my student pulpit in Peoria, Illinois. Now, it was a bit different than what I had previously experienced at 5:45 in the morning. We celebrated Hoshana Rabbah in the evening before Shabbat and didn't recite all of the Hoshanot, the supplications, in Hebrew. But we did take the Torahs out of the Ark and marched 7 times around the synagogue with our lulavs and etrogs, and at the end of the 7th circuit, we beat willow branches on the floor of the synagogue. I have to admit I was a bit nervous bringing a new ritual to my student pulpit, but after services had ended that evening, everyone was talking about this new custom, how they were so excited to learn about it, and how wonderful it was they were able to participate in such a neat tradition. That night, I learned the importance of educating my congregants about all aspects of Judaism and encouraging them to perform a variety of rituals they may have never previously encountered. As a Reform rabbinical student, I have heard the words informed choice more times than I can remember, and I always believed it was an important part of the Reform movement. Observe the rituals that are meaningful to you, and then cast off the rest. But what it took me almost 5 years to realize is that not everyone is actually informed. The choice part is there, but there isn't necessarily education or reason behind the choosing. It's usually what my parents did or what my grandparents did, and less frequently, I learned about this ritual and either find it meaningful or insignificant because of X, Y, or Z. As rabbis, rabbinical students, cantors, or lay leaders, it is our responsibility to inform ourselves, our congregants, and our congregations about the hundreds of Jewish rituals which exist, whether they be celebrating a new holiday, immersing in the mikveh, or blessing our food. It's not enough to just think Jewishly. We also have to live Jewishly. Shabbat Shalom.